The State of the Union oratory to the contrary, President Bush wants to spend less money on the environment and clean energy programs than Congress gave him 2 years ago. In a way, that's not surprising. Domestic programs generally took their lumps in a budget weighted toward tax cuts and military spending. Even so, some of the president's proposals, including a reduction in the Environmental Protection Agency budget from $8.1 billion in 2002 to $7.6 billion this year, seemed downright peculiar, coming as they did on the heels of Mr. Bush's ringing pledges for a cleaner environment and reduced dependence on foreign oil. Mr. Bush's open space programs are similarly disappointing. He boasts, for example, of full funding for the $900 million Land and Water Conservation Fund, all of which is supposed to go to land acquisition by the federal government and the states. In fact, only $187 million is devoted to federal land acquisition, less to state programs. The rest will be subsidizing 15 extraneous programs that, under any honest accounting, should be paid for elsewhere in the budget. Meanwhile, outlays for the national parks remain flat, and at present rates of spending, Mr. Bush cannot possibly satisfy this pledge to fix the system's superstructure by 2006. The news for the country's rivers, lakes, and streams is not much better. Indeed, the reduction in the EPA's budget results partly from cuts in various clean water programs. Moreover, the administration has chosen to take a huge $100 million bite out of the Agriculture Department's demonstrably successful Wetlands Reserve Program. Mr. Hussein is a cagey despot, and he is certain to use the coming week to make a dramatic concession or two. But Hans Blix, the chief inspector for chemical and biological weapons, has demonstrated a stern resistance to eyewash, and the Security Council seems to be tiring of Mr. Hussein's antics. Coercive diplomacy has its limits. It didn't bridge Mr. Hussein from Kuwait a decade ago, but it is well worth trying. Attorney General John Ashcroft has directed federal prosecutors in New York and Connecticut to seek the death penalty in a dozen cases in which they had recommended lesser sentences. Mr. Ashcroft's orders are a triumph of ideology over good prosecutorial practice. The Bush administration should reconsider them. In 10 current cases in New York and 2 in Connecticut, United States attorneys decided not to seek the death penalty. One involved a defendant who pleaded guilty in exchange for testifying against other members of a drug ring. Another involved a defendant who, according to his lawyers, is mentally retarded and thus ineligible for the death penalty. Mr. Ashcroft's decisions appear to be driven by a desire to see the death penalty used more. His aggressive promotion of capital punishment is not only wrong, it is badly timed. Popular support for the death penalty is declining, due in large part to the growing number of cases in which DNA evidence is exonerating death row inmates. Mr. Ashcroft also seems to have a regional agenda. The reversals in New York and Connecticut are nearly half of all cases nationwide in which he has overruled decisions not to seek the death penalty. Mr. Ashcroft's drive to increase the use of capital punishment here flies in the face of the administration's oft-repeated commitment to allowing states and localities more control over policy issues. United States attorneys' offices are among the most respected institutions in law enforcement. The Justice Department should let these professionals make decisions about sentencing, not impose a political agenda on them. Furthermore, while I don't doubt Secretary of State Colin L. Powell's case against Iraq or deny the murderous brutality of Saddam Hussein's tyranny, the case our government needs to make to its citizens, if not to the international community is why containment will not work. That case has not been made. If the United States is going to go to war with every country that supports terrorists and terrorist groups, the list would be long and the wars almost without end. War should be the last resort, not the first or second. Containment is not appeasement. Mr. Powell may well have made a strong case against the Iraqi government, but he has not made a case for war. Engaging and regarding the debate about Iraq, here is a tough, peaceful alternative to war. Leave about 100,000 American and allied troops in Kuwait and neighboring waters under United Nations auspices and American command. No time limit. Increase the level of inspections by a factor of about 10. No time limit. No interference brooked. Regular reports to the United Nations. Any interference or aggression by Iraq to be immediately answered by appropriate military action. Eventual return of Iraq to normality under United Nations auspices. The advantages are avoidance of war and probably increased terrorism, strengthening of the principle of collective security, the protection of Kuwait, a stabilizing effect on the region, and avoidance of rifts within the United States-European post-World War II alliance, and a lower and probably shared cost. Iraq has had its chance. Let's have no more games. Weapons inspectors said the Iraqis were unable to present documentation and unwilling to allow interviews with scientists. The inspectors said 6,500 chemical bombs that could contain 1,000 tons of chemicals are unaccounted for. Inspectors also told of 8,500 liters of anthrax, which the Iraqis claim to have produced and destroyed, also unverifiable. Iraq should not have been amassing any military power for the last decade. We need to get rid of Hussein once and for all. I say, strike fast, strike hard, strike now. Regarding war with Iraq, Thomas L. Friedman belittles the fears and weaknesses of Europeans facing conflagration in their neighborhood. But having been at the center of 2 world wars, Europe now faces mounting political, environmental, and economic uncertainty. Moral superiority is hardly the point, with little sign that this administration supports the collaborative development necessary for a lasting peace. The Europeans may be right.
Too fast.
Too fast? Okay. Well, you'll take it again, no?
Yeah, I'll take it again.
I can't go much faster.
Do you have Friedman, the name, in your dictionary so it comes up?
Yeah, maybe you could put it in, but to spell it, it's sometimes E-E and sometimes E-I.
Right.
Or I-E, if you get. But you can put Thomas L. Friedman. I mean, he's well enough known.
He's a journalist?
Yeah, he's a historian and a journalist, yeah.
That's R. E-I?
F-R, yeah, E-I-D. One of the writers of the, I was reading letters to the editor, is Cohen, but from California. It says, Walter Cohen, the writer, is a Nobel laureate in chemistry, 1998.
How do you write Kuwait?
I write Kuwait, K-W-A-I-T.
One stroke, you write Kuwait?
Yeah, one stroke.